Is this the streaming? There he is down there. You moved that. Well, I want to take a moment, wherever you are in the world, because we have people from 70-some countries that are tuned in streaming, whether you're in your kitchen, out on a boat, sitting in your car, or in a coffee shop. We want to welcome you, and we want you to stay with us through this. And if you have to go out, remember, it is all being recorded, so you've got a week to watch it. But I want to welcome you, and if you can get as much out of this as I got out of it, you're going to be happy for the rest of your life, I can tell you. So welcome. And I want to welcome all of you. We've got a thick book there in front of you. There's a lot of questions in the book, and we're going to lead you into the questions as we go through the weekend. I started out studying this book. It'll be I'm in my 55th year. I've forgotten when I started studying. Back in October 1961. And as I started to study this, my whole life was changing. There's probably someone here that is just starting to take a look at this. I had never read a book before of any kind. I didn't even read comic books. I just did not read. Not that I couldn't, I could, I just didn't, which isn't a very wise decision to make. But the man that gave me this, he said, if you will do exactly what I tell you, do exactly what this book suggests, you can have anything you want. Now, do you know, that seemed preposterous to me. I was flat broke. I would have had to take in every cent I earned for 18 months just to break even. It wasn't a good time. Things weren't working very well. And the idea that you could have anything you want was so far removed from my mind, I just could not believe it. But at the same time, I knew he believed it. And then he said something to me that made something inside click, I guess. He said, listen, your way's not working. Why don't you try mine? Now, I've been trying my way at a number of different things, and none of them worked very well. It never entered my mind that it was me that wasn't working very well. It just that nothing that I was doing worked well. And so I started to study this. And I believe that if you take this information that we're giving you and make up your mind you're going to discipline yourself, because that's all it takes. It takes discipline. The ability to give yourself a command and then follow it. Now, Lloyd Conant gave me this book back in 1968. I was sitting in his kitchen, and he and Earl Nightingale started this industry, really, the personal development industry. They actually started it with Earl Nightingale's recording of The Strangest Secret. And I was sitting in the kitchen, and I asked Lloyd, I said, Lloyd, how did you start this company? Because he didn't start a company, he literally started an industry. And he said, Lloyd would look off into space and he'd raise his hand and he'd go somewhere, and I would always go with him wherever he was going. He said, well, somebody gave me this little green book. And I stayed up all weekend studying it. And then on Monday morning, I decided I would start a world-class company. All of a sudden, I wasn't interested in his company at all. I didn't care how he started or anything. I just wanted to know, what's the little green book? And he gave me a copy. Now, that was in 1968. The level of awareness that I was operating with was very shallow. And as I started to read this, it was like Alice in Wonderland or something, you know. I mean, I just could not believe it. It was just too far-fetched. But because of what Ray said to me about the Think and Grow Rich book, and it started to work, and I started to pay attention to him, something inside said, pay attention to this man. And it was probably around that time that I realized if you really want to win at anything, it doesn't really matter what it is, there's a very, very simple formula. It's not complicated. Anyone can learn it. Go to someone who has demonstrated by results that they really know what they're talking about, and then do exactly what that person tells you. You don't have to like them, but you've got to do exactly what they tell you until you find out they're lying or they don't know what they're talking about. Now, that's pretty straightforward and simple advice. Well, I'm a fairly simple guy. I'm not a complicated person at all. I don't think I am anyway. Everybody in the company might think so, but I think I'm a pretty simple character. I'm not very complicated. And I always felt if I could do this, anybody could do it. And so at some point, this is way back in the 60s, things were really moving for me. I went from $4,000 to $175 a year. Now, the other day, for some strange reason, I went and Googled, what would $175,000 in 1961 be in today's dollars? And I think it came out, it was $1.3 million something. So I went from nothing to $1.3 million something in around 12 months. You did it in 3 months, I think, didn't you, Keith? Something like that. He reported in the last seminar, he did that in 3 months. So I started to think, this would probably work anywhere if it worked for me. And then someone asked me if I would go down to Kingston and speak to some of the people. Kingston is maximum security in Canada. I think they just closed it, actually. And I went in there, and I saw things happening there. I'm not going to get way off track into this, but there was one guy, he had been sentenced to 27 years. He'd been in solitary confinement for 7 years when I met him. And I went in on the understanding anybody who wanted to come and listen to me, they had to let them out of the cell, let them come. Didn't matter who they were, didn't matter how bad they were, they had to do it. They said, well, we can't do that. And I said, I'm not coming in then. Well, finally, they said, okay. And this guy heard I was coming in, and that he could get out of his cell. I mean, what the hell? It would be a couple hours out of his cell. He only got out for an hour a day over 7 years. And make a long story short, he was let out on a special parole. I got the Canadian authorities to tear up his parole, give him his passport. I took him to England because he was the most valuable employee I had. Now, this happened just over months. That would be an extreme case. I have seen people that are that door, close to death's door, and all of a sudden there's nothing wrong with them. I've seen kids in school go from C and D average to an A and B average almost overnight. All kids have an C and A and B average in them. It's just that they're not expressing it. And we let the report card dictate what we think of the kid. So, as we get into this, it doesn't really matter whether you believe me or not, to me, but it matters to you. And although it may sound preposterous, if Sandy Gallagher had come up to me in that seminar in Vancouver, Washington, and says, I'm going to own a half your company, you know, I thought, this little chick is nuts, you know. But our company's done better since she joined us than we've ever done in the 55 years I've been in business. She's made that big of a difference. And she made that big of a difference because she made a decision in this particular seminar. I thought that was a great idea that Becca had to introduce her right at the start, because this was the seminar she was coming to. She had no idea what the seminar was. She had no idea who I was. She had no idea what we were going to teach, but this is the one she came to. So if you're sitting at home and you're watching this and you've got dreams, Even if you don't believe it, write them down. Take a blank sheet in the book and write the dream down. But write it in the present tense. Like, I'm so happy and grateful now that, and put that it's already happened. Now, this is the book that Rhonda Byrne was inspired to do The Secret through this book, through The Science of Getting Rich. Her daughter gave it to her. It's a very old copy, and she gave it, and that's what Rhonda Byrne, she was in TV down in Melbourne, and this is the book that inspired that. And that has moved mentally millions, hundreds of millions of people. So let's think of this for a moment. I want you to think of yourself. I'm saying you can create your own economy. You literally can. It doesn't really matter what financial position you're in. Make this a starting point. In the Born Rich book, and if you don't own it, you can go to our site and download it for nothing. In chapter 2, I show you how to get out of debt. You set up an automatic debt repayment program, and then you don't think of debt ever again. Then you just think of prosperity. Now, that's actually what happened to me. It took me a long time to figure out what I had done, but I wrote on a card that I was going to have $25,000 when I first read that book. I didn't even know anyone with $25,000. I don't think I had ever known anybody with that much money. And I kept reading the card. Now, what happened was, and I only saw this in retrospect, or became aware of this in retrospect, I started to think of earning money. Now, the natural thought on anybody's part, well, weren't you thinking of that before? No, I wasn't. I was thinking of debt. If you're in debt and you have people calling you for money, that dominates your thinking. All you're thinking is debt, 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 get out of debt. And if that's what you're thinking, that's where you're going to stay. You're going to attract more debt. That's why most people stay in debt all their life. Well, in the book, I show you how to set up an automatic debt repayment program, and then all you focus on is prosperity. And if that's what you start focusing on, that's what's going to happen. And it just keeps getting better and better and better. Now, I'm going to ask you to turn to page 169 in your book. It's way towards the back of the book. And what we're going to do, we're going to start off on the deep end of the pool. And then we'll come back and we'll get into the shallow end a little later. Right at the top of page 169, there's a quote there by Wattles. He said, "There is a mind which knows all there is to know. And if you have deep gratitude, you can come into close unity with this mind by faith and the purpose to advance in life." Okay? Now, what we're talking about is all your answers are here. Now, I'm going to share something with you. It's not in your book. I'm going to share it with you now, and then I'll share it with you a little later. If there's anybody on, and I know there is, from Copenhagen, this came from the man in Copenhagen many, many years ago, Søren Kierkegaard, a very bright guy. He said something about listening. Listening. We are so caught up in what's going on in our outside world, we miss it. He said, we can only get in touch with our own source of intuition and wisdom when we no longer depend upon others' opinions for our sense of identity and worth. Now, really think about that for a moment. We can only get in touch with our own source of intuition and wisdom when we no longer depend on others' opinions for our sense of identity and worth. We all tend to worship something. The question is, will we worship the God of opinion or the God of our heart? I found I had less and less to say, and finally I became silent, and I began to listen. I discovered in the silence the voice of God. Kierkegaard was a very bright guy. He's very well known to the community over and around Copenhagen because that's where he came from. That is one of the most beautiful pieces of literature that you can find. Now, Webster said that a rhetorical question is a question without an answer. You couldn't have a question without an answer. That's like having an inside to the room without an outside. Answer is the polar opposite to the question. It's the flip side of the coin. So you cannot have a question without an answer. Every question has an answer. And if you listen, you will hear your answer. This is where we want to be quiet. This is where we start using wisdom. Let me go through this one more time. He said, we can only get in touch with our own source of intuition and wisdom when we no longer depend upon others' opinions for our sense of identity or worth. We all tend to worship something. The question is, will we worship the God of opinion? So many people do. They're so concerned with what other people think about them. I have reached a point where I really don't care what you think of me. I really don't. Honest to God, I don't. Now, I hope you like me. I'm a nice guy. You should. But if you don't, that's okay. Okay? Now, I can remember for a very long part of my life, I really cared about what you thought of me. And if I heard you didn't like me, that would just destroy me. I care more of what I think of me today. And I think this is what Kierkegaard is talking about. We want to listen to the inner self. We all tend to worship something. The question is, will we worship the God of opinion? I mean, are you really concerned with what other people think of you? Are you letting that control your life? Or the God of our heart? I found I had less and less to say until finally I became silent and I began to listen. I discovered in the silence the voice of God, of the all-knowing. Now, I dug something else out that's on the bottom of that page. And I've made a few slides because I want to go over it, and then we're going to go back and we're going to start. But on the bottom of the page, where it said, my mind is a center of divine operation. If you're wondering something about yourself, just pay attention here. My mind is a center of divine operation. Now think of this for a moment. Earl Nightingale taught me how to study. You take a paragraph like the bottom of this page, and you may read it 1,000 times. You may break it down into what I've just done, a sentence. And really pay attention to what you're reading. You see, in that first line, there's something that is not in harmony with our belief system. My mind is a center. Do you know what that indicates? There's more than one center. Now, we know in everything and anything, there's only one center. If I had a basketball here in my hand, I've got an imaginary basketball here. You know there's only one center in that ball. That's going to be determined by the outer measurements of the ball. There's only one center in this room. I wouldn't know where to find it, but some people here probably could. But there's only one. He's saying my mind is a center of divine operation. Well, you see, when you're dealing with the mind, you're dealing with infinite. You find the center of the basketball by the outer measurements of the ball. When you're dealing with the divine, there is no outer measurements. You're dealing with infinite. There is no. So any point center. There's as much power behind you as there is in front of you. There's as much above as there is below, and to your right or your left. You are the center of the whole universe. That's a big idea. The divine operation's always for expansion and fuller expression. This means the production of something beyond what has gone before. Something entirely new, not included in our past experience, though proceeding out of our past experience by an orderly sequence of growth. Therefore, since the divine cannot change its inherent nature, it must operate in the same manner in me. Consequently, in my special world, of which I am the center, it'll move me forward to produce new conditions, always in advance of any that's gone before. There's a lady that went to study with the man that wrote this in 1912. She had to attract $20,000 to go and study with him for 2 years, studying with Thomas Troward in England. And she memorized what we've just gone through. He told her he didn't have any students. He didn't have any. He wrote books and essays. And he's probably one of the most brilliant writers that I've ever found in the last 500 years. And he said, your answer's in this paragraph. And she memorized it. And she kept saying it over and over. My mind is the center of divine operation. The divine operation's always for expansion and fuller expression. See, that's the foundation of the science of getting rich. I don't know, but I would bet money that Waddle studied Troward. My mind is a center of divine operation. This is a beautiful thought to entertain. And the divine operation, my mind's a center of this, and the divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression. This means the production of something beyond what has gone before. In other words, if I understand this, my mind's a center of this power, and as I study into it, I'm an expression of this power. Everything about me, that's really what I am. And this power is always for expansion and fuller expression. So this means the production of something beyond what's gone before. I can get better results than I've ever got. Something entirely new. It's entirely new, not included in my past experience. So it's not a repeat performance. Though it's proceeding out of my past experience by an orderly sequence of growth. That means that everything that has ever happened to you has been absolutely essential to make you who you are, to prepare you to do whatever it is you're going to do. So you should have no regrets. Man, I've screwed up so many times. If I told you, I'd ruin your week. But you know something? I don't feel bad about any of it, because it was all necessary to make me who I am, to prepare me to do what I'm going to do. My mind is the center of divine operation. Divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression. This means the production of something beyond what's gone before, something entirely new, is not included in my past experience, although it is proceeding out of my past experience by an orderly sequence of growth. And then, therefore, since the divine cannot change its inherent nature. In other words, the law never changes. Spence was doing a video one day, and I was saying, there's just outside of my studio, there's a Japanese maple. It's just a bunch of sticks there right now. But in the fall, it has crimson red leaves on it. They're beautiful, and it's a big, beautiful tree. But I said, every fall the leaves all fall off that tree, every one of them. Every year. It's never missed. And every spring, they come back on. Every time. When the tide goes out, it always comes back. Therefore, since the divine cannot change its inherent nature, it must operate in the same manner within me. So consequently, in my special world, of which I'm the center, it'll move me forward to produce new conditions, always in advance of any that's gone before. So you know the results you've got, they're nothing compared to what's coming, if you follow the law. If you do what you're charged to do. Now, I memorized this, I don't know, eon years ago. I figured if it was good enough for Genevieve Beerand, it's good enough for me. It got her $20,000 in 1912, which was a heap of dough, and she was able to go and study with him. So you see, in studying this, where we're starting right now is in the deep end of the pool. This stuff is not for the minnows and the shallows. I mean, this is deep stuff. You've got to dig into this. You've really got to understand what it means. Because you've got just awesome mental powers. Yet when someone says, oh, I don't really believe all that stuff, just say a quiet prayer for them and wander away. Because they don't know. They don't know, and they don't know they don't know. Now, let's just take a look at the chapters that we're going to be studying here. The first chapter is the right to be rich. You have a right to be rich. That's a God-given right. You are God's highest form of creation. There is nothing on the planet that will even come close to you. All the other little creatures, they're completely at home in their environment. They blend in. You and I are the only creature that's totally disoriented in our environment. And that is because we've been given the responsibility and the ability to create our own environment. And the idea that you don't deserve is a false concept that you've probably inherited. You deserve all the good that can be created. That is your birthright. Now, not everybody here believes that. I think everybody said, I like that. I would like to live with that, but I don't know. You see, our belief systems, we didn't even originate. We inherited our belief systems. They've been passed down from one generation to another. Just the title of the first chapter, The Right to be Rich. Chapter 2, you'll often hear people say, is there really a science to getting rich? Sandy was talking about being interviewed by Larry King. I remember talking to him, and he asked me that question. He says, is there really a science to getting rich? I said, absolutely. It's an exact science. If there's an exact science and you learn it and you follow it, you're going to get rich. It could be riches in relationships. Could be riches in health. Could be riches in dollars. The riches could be measured many different ways. So we have a right to be rich, and then there's a science to getting rich. Now, chapter 3 is a good question. Is opportunity monopolized? We'll say this is the greatest time for opportunity. Well, tomorrow will be a better time. And next month will be a better time. And 5 years from now, it'll even be a better time. What we've got to understand is what opportunity is. Most people think of opportunity as something, it's a great deal that you're getting. That isn't opportunity at all. Opportunity has to do with giving. Yet it has to do with what you're putting out, not what you're getting. I woke up this morning early, and I found out after I had all the slides made, we were working on widescreen. I didn't have widescreen slides. You transfer your slides to widescreen and everything goes haywire. I've worked from early morning. I ran down, had a quick omelet, and I went back up until 4:30. And I jumped in the shower, and I phoned Becca, and I got her to order me an omelet and put in the green room. And I come over and plugged in, and I still haven't fixed them all. So I'll work on that tonight and early tomorrow morning and get it all done. But the good part is I had to go over every slide. So going over every slide, freshening it in my mind. And there's one thing we want to get straight in our head. Opportunity will never be monopolized because opportunity has it with giving. You know, I was starting to do work with an old friend, Wolfgang Sonnenberg, over in England, or in Germany. He's actually living just outside of Zurich right now. And we work on the concept that Goethe started, you know, before you can do something, you first must be something. So it's be, do, have. And he said, well, I've added something to that. It's be, do, have, give. You've got to be more, do more, have more, give more. I thought Cynthia would love that. She wants everybody to give her more money. But she puts it to good work. She's educating kids all over the world. See? You got to do more or be more if you're going to do more. And you got to do more if you're going to have more. And if you want to be more, you better give more. It's a cycle that we get going. Opportunity is locked up in that cycle. The fourth chapter is one I would put a big asterisk beside number 4. The first principle in the science of getting rich. In fact, I recommend that people read every day for about 90 days after this seminar, chapter 4, 14, and 7, in that order. 4, 14, and 7. 4, 14, and 7. 4, 14, and 7. Chapter 4 is where you take over. You do not let the conditions and circumstance control you. You don't let anything outside of you control your thinking. That is not an easy thing to learn to do. We've been programmed from infancy to let the outside control what's going on in the inside. We've got to stop it and turn it around. And I can guarantee you, you keep studying this chapter over and over and over and over and over. Sit down with someone and read it. And every time you read a paragraph, talk about it for a moment. As it points out in here, thinking what you want to think is the hardest work there is. There is nothing more difficult than thinking what you want to think. Chapter 5 is a classic. It's what Troward was talking about. My mind is the center of divine operation. The divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression. See, we're talking about increasing life. There's some people here. Where's Matt? Did he not come? That's too bad. Is your business still bouncing ahead like it was? Do you know, that's a good term you just said. It's amazing. Because when I'm talking to somebody and these wild things happen, they never surprise me anymore. Well, even if I'm not expecting it, if it happens, it doesn't surprise me. But it never ceases to fascinate me. It is amazing how things happen. And they just keep happening. And they just keep happening. So as you start studying this and you get into the idea of increasing life, that's such a beautiful idea. That's increasing the life of your business, increasing the life of your relationships, increasing whatever it is you're going after. And it'll happen. Chapter 6 is how riches come to you. I forgot who I was talking to one day. We were talking about money. And I said, I found out where it is. It's so cool. I know how to get it. I know where it is. I know where the money is. Now, for years, it really puzzled me. Where the hell is the money? You know, where's the beef? I could never figure it out. I mean, I was having difficulty finding a couple of dollars for gas when it was, 5 gallons for $2. I mean, it was bad times. How riches come to you? How do they come? Now, I guarantee you, most people are thinking of how to get it. Not in how you get it. It's almost the polar opposite to everything we've been taught. So as you get into this, how riches come to you, and I really hope that we get into every one of the chapters, but we may not, because, Sunday night, whoom, comes that fast. But we're going to get into enough of it, and you've got it all there in writing. This is one everybody wants to know. This is where Napoleon Hill said, when riches begin to come, they come so quickly and in such great abundance that you're going to wonder where they were hiding through all the lean years. You're seeing that, Bob? It's just, my God. I thought I was pretty smart. I thought I had it all figured out. Wow. And it starts to come in. Chapter 7 is the third one that I suggest you read. 4, 14, and 7. And you can switch them around. You can start off with 7 and go to 14, then go to 4. It doesn't matter. Sandy always gets into teaching this particular lesson because it had such a phenomenal impact on her life. She was very, very troubled one day. And I'll leave the story for her to tell, but she said, could you give me a couple ideas? And I said, absolutely. Now, I didn't know what the hell I was going to tell her, but I said, sure, And I started by saying, think of 10 things you're grateful for. Well, if you're troubled, you don't want to be thinking of what you're grateful for. You know what you want to think about? You want to think about your troubles. The troubles seem to wrap us up. Gratitude it's one of the most magnificent concepts anyone can learn. There's a businessman in Toronto, an extremely wealthy guy, And he had mega problems and a lot of financial problems. And because Sandy's sort of a financial genius, not sort of, she really is, I said, listen, she's coming to town. You should sit down with her. She's a real bright gal. And he was expecting some brilliant concept to come out of her. And she took a pad and gave it to him. And she said, every day I want you to write down 10 things you're grateful for. And he looked at her. He says, is that it? She said, yeah. Now, oddly enough, the guy did it, and it did work miracles for him. If you're sitting at home and you're looking at this and you're thinking about this, think real seriously about it. See, if you've never really studied this material before, if you're not familiar with what I teach, and it's sort of new, don't push it aside. Give it a whirl. Give it for 30 days. You know, Napoleon Hill was asked to do something by Andrew Carnegie. He was the wealthiest man in the world back in 1908. And Hill thought Carnegie was crazy in what he suggested. And Carnegie said, just do it for 30 days. Will you commit to do that? And so Hill thought, well, I can do that. That 30 days changed his whole life. Not only changed his life, it changed my life, and it's changed the lives of millions of people. Just try what we're suggesting for at least 30 days. Chapter 8, thinking in a certain way. Here's the part of this. You can find two people working in the same company, working for the same person, and one is extremely successful and the other struggling. They're both hearing the same information. They're both dealing with the same kind of people. They're both working in the same marketplace, maybe selling the same thing. One's winning and one's losing. As Waddles points out, you don't get rich by doing certain things. Now really burn this into your mind. You do not get rich by doing certain things. You get rich by doing things in a certain way. See, if I walk into your place of business and I shake hands with you, I say, hi, Joshua, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Great. Now, I can tell Joshua I want to help him. And he'd hear me say that. And I could sound like I really want to help him. But maybe I'm a half-decent actor. I'm not quite sure if my cell phone's still going to be working when I leave this call. They might be cutting it off because the bill's not paid. I'm not sure whether I'm going to make it home or not because there might not be enough gas in the car. Then I don't even know if the car's going to be repossessed while I'm on the call. So I really need to make this sale. What's on my mind? I'm not thinking of helping you. I want you to help me. I want you to buy something from me. And yet we're both saying, I want to help you. We could make the same presentation. We could be using the same presentation. We could be taught the same presentation and doing the same thing. It's not what we're saying, it's the energy that's going with it. If my energy is inverted and I'm just thinking of getting, I can sound fairly convincing. I can be saying exactly the same thing. One wins, one loses. Pretty obvious, isn't it? And yet it's not something you can see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. But if you're tuned in, you'll feel it. That's what he's talking about, a certain way. The certain way is by law. Richard Fox is writing a book, The Law of Laws. Emerson said, the The law of cause and effect was the law of laws. If you don't like what's coming back, you better check what you're putting out. Certain way. Chapter 9 is how to use the will. The will is something that's not very well, it's not really understood by most people. The will is the mental faculty. It's one of our intellectual factors. It's the mental faculty that gives you the ability to concentrate. I want you to imagine that we turn all the lights out, and there's a sign on that wall that's giving us instructions that we need. And I've got a candle, and I light the candle. I might not even be able to see the wall. Some of the candle light's going towards the wall, some's going down there, some's coming up here, over here, on me. But if I take the same candle power and put it on a flashlight and aim it at the wall, none of the light is being wasted. It's all zeroed right in on the sign. Well, that's the difference between properly using the will and scattered thoughts. There's a power flowing in. It flows to and through us. If our mind is a hodgepodge of unrelated ideas, the like of which you might not find outside of an encyclopedia, you know that this energy that's coming in is going every which way. No power behind it. If we use the will and we focus, that's what Neville said. Our only problem is weakness of attention and poverty of imagination. Focus. The will gives us the ability to focus. Now, when you use your will and focus, the energy leaving you has enormous power. Feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. If I'm standing behind you and I'm staring at you, we could be in a mall and I'm staring at you, you will feel me staring at you. You'll feel it. That is because I'm focused. I'm focused on you. And you will feel that energy. You'll feel it. It's strong energy. And you turn around, sure enough, there's somebody standing there staring at you, and then they move away. That's what you're feeling. Well, when you concentrate, you're giving more energy to whatever you're concentrating on. Emerson said the only thing that can grow is the thing you give energy to. Do you know some people are concentrating on their problems? They're concentrating on disease. They're concentrating on poverty. You've got to concentrate on the good that you desire. Build a picture of it. See it happening. You got that picture, Penny? I think you have. And you know where you're sitting. Isn't that wild? Number 10. Further use of the will. This was important enough to the author that he dedicated 2 chapters. Now, the will is just one of our higher faculties. You have perception, the will, intuition, reason, memory. Jack Canfield and a couple of other people, I think Mark was involved and then there was another person, wrote a book, Focus. Focus is so important. When you see anyone that's really winning, they are focused. I talk about Cynthia always needing more money. She is focused on getting more money. She's focused on what she's doing with the money. I have watched Cynthia Kersey over the past, I don't know how many years, and her focus just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. She's more and more focused all the time. But you see the unstoppable foundation growing more and more and more all the time. It's something to really watch. It's even better to be a part of. Chapter 11 is acting in the certain way. I love Stella Adler's book, The Art of Acting. I absolutely love it. And Sandy Gallagher and I've just got a new book out, The Art of Living. And it was made on the same concept that The Art of Acting was done. All the great teachers have taught us to act like the person we want to become. That's not an easy thing to do if you don't really understand that. Act like the person you want to become. I want you to think of some of the great actors. They're absolutely phenomenal. I mean, they're so good. I'll tell you something that you've got to recognize in a great actor. They don't care what anybody around them's thinking. They are locked into their role. They are living it. You go way back to 1900, in Harvard, William James said, it's the actor's technique. Act like the person you want to become. I think we should all study acting. I'm serious. We should all study Stella Adler's book. It's on method acting. We should study it. And when you read the book, you're not really reading a book because she never wrote a book. A man named Kissel took her work and turned it into a book. That's what Sandy did. Sandy Gallagher took my work and turned it into a book, following Kissel and Adler's formula. So when you read the book, you're actually going to her acting classes. Then take those lessons that you're learning there and apply them to whatever it is you're working on. Yet act like you've already got it. Live it. Watch the great actors. They'll have you crying and laughing. They'll make you angry. They'll get you don't even like them. I have a niece that was acting for quite a while. She was in some of the shows on Young and the Restless and those kind of shows on TV. And I watched her in a movie one time, and I really didn't like her. She was not a nice person. And you know, I was having conflicts in my mind because she's actually a really sweet person. And about halfway through it, I thought, damn, she's really good. She's made me not like her. That was the part. That was the role. Well, how about if we build a picture of what we want? That's what this is about. That's what Waddell's talking about. Act in a certain way. Act in harmony with the law. Chapter 14 is leave everyone with the impression of increase. That's the way you want to act. You want people to feel good because you've been there. Chapter 12 is effective action. There's a great book. It's been out of print now, I think, for years, but I know you can get a copy because I just got a copy. And it's called The Technique of Getting Things Done by Donald and Eleanor Laird, L-A-I-R-D. The Technique of Getting Things Done. You'll be able to find one somewhere. The Technique of Getting Things Done. It's extremely well written. See, a person that's involved in effective action, they understand the technique of getting things done. Do you know there's some people that are busy as daylight, or busy as anything, from daylight till dark, but they don't accomplish anything. They just don't accomplish much. I'm a pretty effective guy. Not by accident, but because I have studied this so long and I keep studying it, you keep doing more of it. But at the end of the day, you've got to ask yourself, were my actions really effective? Or was I putting in time? A lot of people are busy just for busyness sake. That doesn't cut it. Chapter 13 is getting into the right business. I believe I'm in the best business. I don't think there's any business better than the business I'm in. I really believe that. There's two forms of compensation that you need in life. One is material, that's money, and the other is psychic, that's satisfaction. I believe this industry offers you more money and more satisfaction than anything I can think of. And it's based on the law of compensation. It's decreed, the amount of money you earn is in direct ratio to the need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. And that could be the same with psychic income. The need for what you do, your ability to do it, and the difficulty there is in replacing you. There's such a phenomenal need for people to understand what we're talking about here. Our entire educational system is sending people down an opposite road. It's got them going in the opposite direction. The whole thing's geared up towards intellectual development. Nothing about awareness. Nothing about the spiritual essence of who you are. There's such a phenomenal need for what we do. I think you can earn more money and get greater psychic income in this business than any business in the world. But you know something? I know people that are in this business and they're earning zippo, nada. You can be in a business where there's a great need. If you're not very good at it, you're not going to earn much. You're not going to get much satisfaction. You've just got to dedicate yourself to getting better at what you're doing. And since we're dealing with infinite, there's no end to how good you can get at it. You just keep getting better at it. If you're sitting at home and you're listening to this, you might ask yourself, how well do I do what I'm doing? Do I give it everything I've got? Because if you're not giving it everything you've got, you're selling yourself short. If you really want to enjoy life and get a lot out of every day, give everything you've got. And when you do that, then you're very difficult to replace. So the law of compensation is being taken care of. Chapter 14 is the impression of increase. This, without question, is one of the greatest lessons anybody can ever learn. You will have friends without end. I mean, everywhere you go. If you leave everyone you come in contact with, your sole focus is when you're with them. You've got to listen to them, you've got to pay attention to them so you connect. But you want to leave them with the impression of increase. They want to feel better because you've been there. By leaving everyone with the impression of increase, that law of laws that you're writing about, you know you're going to get it all back. It's a cycle. You're starting it. And whatever you put out comes back. Chapter 15 is the advancing person. Well, I would choose to believe that everyone in this room and everyone that is tuned in the streaming would see themselves as an advancing person. I have a very good friend in Toronto, Avi Aronov. He's a young guy. He hounded me and hounded me to coach him. I said, Avi, you couldn't afford what you're asking for. He said, how much? And I told him it was a lot of money. He more or less said, why don't you let me decide whether that's a lot of money? He was only 21. I coached Avi for a year. Avi drove me to the airport to come here. Avi figures he'll earn about $1 million this month. He's earning around $1 million a month. He's around 22. Avi's a very bright young guy. He's a Russian Jew who's an immigrant, so he doesn't speak impeccable English. And he's young, sort of scrawny. So a lot of people don't pay attention to him until they get to know him. And then they really pay attention to him. Avi understands this program from a working perspective. Avi is an advancing person. I would like to see where he's going to be in 25, 30 years. It will be interesting because he is one of the brightest young guys I have ever met in my life. Now, let's keep our eye on the ball for a moment and really think about why we've come here. What did we come to learn? What is it that we really want to get? Because this is really a mind game. Make no mistake about it, it is. Nobody's ever seen the mind, so we let that image right there represent the mind. That circle with the horizontal line, separating the top from the bottom. And then if we put a body on this and bring it down and do some work with it, we'll start to maybe grasp how we can benefit from being here. The top half is called the conscious mind, the bottom half is the subconscious, and the small circle is called the body. Yes, some of you said, Bob, you went through this in the last seminar. I go through this in every seminar. I've been going through this for years, and I'm going to tell you what it's enabled me to do. It's enabled me to walk up to a person, and without ever talking to them, I'll have a line go right across the center of their head, and I can tell you all kinds of things about them. There isn't a person here that I couldn't walk up to and I know exactly what they're like. What is it? Craig? I'd never want to try and get Craig to do something he doesn't want to do. How many know Craig? You know Craig? This guy's got a stubborn streak in him about as wide as this room. He calls it persistence. But he's mentally a tough guy. If you're going to sell him something, get him to think it's his idea. Don't rush. Try and close him fast, you've lost it. That's pretty accurate, isn't it, so far? If I took him out to eat, I'd let him get his teeth into something substantial. Not necessarily a lot, but he likes some solid food. See, you throw me a grilled cheese sandwich, and I'll keep going for another 2 or 3 hours. That's not going to cut it with Craig. Now, I've got an idea he doesn't do manual labor, but when he's got some spare time, he likes knocking fences down or digging a ditch or something because he does that for just recreation. Is that accurate? Yeah. And I never wondered whether you could afford it. You always got a couple of bucks stuck away for a rainy day. So if you tell me you couldn't afford it, you're not telling me the truth. What you're really saying is you haven't sold me yet. It's fairly accurate, isn't it? Yeah. You want me to keep going? Tell these people, and then they all know what you're like. How do you do that? I've gone through that drawing so often. I've gone through it so often. You get to know what people are like. You get to know exactly what they're like. And then when you're dealing with them, you'll have that imaginary line right across the center of their head. And when you start talking to them, it's the top half of your head that you're dealing with at the beginning. You've got to get them thinking along a certain line. You've got to get them to stop thinking and open their mind so you can go into the subconscious mind. If you ever hope to get a person to take one of these things and put it on a predetermined dotted line, you better know what the hell you're doing. Otherwise, you're just shooting in the dark. It doesn't work. If you want their body to do something, you've got to get them emotionally involved with the idea. And if they don't get emotionally involved, you're never going to get them to do it. Now, the more I study this, every day I go through this. In seminars, I do it. I'm sitting in my office going through it. Because you see, that could be me, and they are my results. That's me, and they're my results. That can be you, and they can be your results. That being the case, this is where you want to go. That's where you were, Keith, when you wanted that boat. My God, the boat is up there. I'm down here. The boat's way up there. There's a big gap between where I am and where I want to be. He told us an interesting story. There was a boat that was being made in South Africa. It was in South Africa, wasn't it? And that's the boat he wanted. And he was either going to have to wait a year or something for a boat for them to build it, or they said there's one being built and it's going to be on its way here, but you'll have to take it in 90 days. That meant he had to come up with $1 million in 90 days. He thought, how in the hell am I going to do that? But you know something? He really wanted that boat. So what did he have to do? He had to get involved in a mind game. And because you had sat in these seminars and you had studied this and studied and studied it, you knew that it was a matter of a decision. You didn't have to know how you were going to get the million. You just had to know you were going to get the million. Now, I'm not talking to school. He told that to everybody in the last seminar. But I got a picture of him sailing that boat out of Florida. I got a video of it. Man, that's a wide boat, isn't it? It's like a football field. It's so wide. You see, if you decide you're going for the star, the second you make the decision, you flip your brain onto a different frequency, and the thoughts and things that you need are going to start coming to you. Now, you can be sitting at home or sitting in your office. It doesn't make any difference. You're getting the same information as the people that are sitting right here. Just open your mind and let this in. It's a mind game. The science of getting rich is going to help you. As we start going through this exercise book, turn over right now to page 5. Sandy was talking about awareness. Look at the bottom here, the bottom 2 paragraphs. Curious how we acquire wisdom. Over and over again, the same truth is thrust under our very noses. We encounter it in action. We're admonished of it. We read it in the written word. We suffer the experience. We gradually assent to the advice. We approve intellectually the written word, but nothing happens inside of us. That's sort of what happens as you study this. Then one day, some trivial experience or word or encounter stops us short, just bang, right in our tracks. A gleam of illumination penetrates the depths of our consciousness. We see. Usually, it is but a glimpse. But on rare occasion, a brilliant flash reveals truth fully formed. And we marvel that this understanding has escaped us for so long. We see. I keep talking about the song, I Can See Clearly Now, by Johnny Nash. Do you have that back there? a lot. I don't know, a couple of years ago, I guess. John Tallarico. He's very involved in the music business. And I haven't seen it yet. But he delivered to Brian a record framed of I Can See Clearly Now by Johnny Nash. And he got Johnny Nash to autograph it and send it to me. And the record's coming out of the sleeve and it's framed. Johnny Nash is 75 now, and he lives in Houston. But Tallarico got a hold of him, and he told me, I was talking to him on the phone, it took him 2 months to get it. He said, I had trouble getting this, but I got it. And Johnny Nash sent me a copy of the record. Now, this record is damn near as old as me. Well, it wouldn't be that old because he's only 75. He's a young guy. But I think it's kind of cool. I'll get Brian to bring it down. I'll show it to you tomorrow. I love that song. You see, I think we want to get these songs going in our head. How about Nat King Cole's Pretend? You got that back there? Pretend. Do you know a lot of the things we get upset and are angry about, they didn't even happen. It was our imagination that created them, that got us upset. We did it to ourselves. Well, we're talking about a mind game, and that's really what we want to do. Now, let's turn over to the first part of this. We're on page 11. Now, this is pretty interesting. Whatever may be said in praise of poverty, the fact remains that it is not possible to live a really complete and successful life unless one is rich. Now, don't read anything else. Just read that first paragraph again. Whatever may be said in praise of poverty, the fact remains that it is not possible to live a really complete and successful life unless one is rich. How many people have trouble with that? Be honest. Nobody has trouble with that? Wait a minute. How many of you can hold your arm in the air? Let me see if you can get your arm in the air. All right. Now, let's really suck in some truth serum here. How many of you have some difficulty with that? Oh, and we got a few held up their hands. You know why we have difficulty with it? We have difficulty with it because of the way we're programmed. See, if you're going to live a really complete life, you're going to need a lot of things that you are not able to do yourself. You cannot make yourself. You cannot get yourself. You're going to need money. For what? Almost anything that you do. Think of all the services that are being taken care of in your home right now. Costs money. See, let's not get on the wrong track with this. We're not saying money's everything. We're just saying that it's essential if you want other people's products or services. You got to have money. And with money, you can start to do the things that you'd really like to do. Money enables you to extend the good you do far beyond your own presence. Our company is educating kids in Africa every day. Hundreds of them. And apparently we're going to start educating them in India and Los Angeles. Is it Los Angeles? Yeah, she says yes, we're going to Los Angeles. Right. No, it's not that Los Angeles is the same as India or Africa. It's just that they're going to do something there too. We cannot rise to our greatest possible height in talent or soul development unless we have plenty of money. In order to unfold the soul and to develop talent, we must have many things to use, and we cannot have these things unless we have the money to buy them with. If you stop and think of what you've spent money on just in the last 24 hours, there's all kinds of things that you spent money on that you probably didn't really think about. You may have not spent a cent out of your pocket in the last 24 hours, but you were spending money at home, you were spending money in your office, in your car, in different places. That was money being spent. Now, I want you to think when you're broke, you have absolutely no money. I know most of you have never been that way. I've been that way, I'll tell you. And, man, life gets pretty rugged. You can't do this, you can't do that. You'll even get to the point where you're real hungry. How many here have ever cashed in Coke bottles to get something to eat? God, I have. Oh, you have? Yeah. I remember doing it and saying, I'm never going to do this again. Then I'd do it again. You see? People develop in mind and soul and body by making use of things, and society is so organized that people must have money in order to become the possessor of things. Therefore, the basis of all human advancement must be the science of getting rich. The object of all life is development. Everything that lives has an inalienable right to all the development it is capable of attaining. You know, he gets into, you might want to enjoy great art. Well, you may go to a museum, but how about in your own home? You know? There's so many things, if there was no end to the money, you know, things that we would do, not just to blow the money, but for our own development. Each of us has a right to life. This means the right to have the free and unrestricted use of all the things that may be necessary to our fullest mental, spiritual, and physical unfolding. In other words, our right to be rich. In this book, I shall not speak of riches in a figurative way. To be really rich does not mean to be satisfied or contented with a little. You ought not to be satisfied with a little if you are capable of using and enjoying more. Now, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I want you to take, there's page 11, 12, 13, and 14. I want one person to start reading, and I want everyone to really focus and listen to that person at your table that's reading. Start right at the beginning of the chapter. Forget that I've just gone over some of it. Start right at the beginning, and then you may say, when you've read a bit, pass, and somebody else start reading. And read the chapter. And listen very carefully to the person that's reading it. And then, when that's done, there are questions on page 15. I'm going to ask you, the person that started to read, to ask that question. Explain how the right to life includes the right to riches. Okay, there's questions. You ask those questions, and I want you to discuss them at your table. Any questions? Good, let's start. All right. How many of you have enjoyed discussing these questions at your table? They're good questions. Now look over on the next page, on page 16. I love this statement by Carnegie. Andrew Carnegie in 1908 was the wealthiest man in the world, and he was the one that inspired Napoleon Hill to do the great work that he did. Carnegie said, "I demand riches in definite terms. I have a definite plan for acquiring riches. I am engaged in carrying out my plan, and I am giving an equivalent in useful service of the value of those riches I demand." In Think and Grow Rich, there's a chapter, or a paragraph, I mean. If you're at home, I want you to really dig into this. And if you're there by yourself, have a good conversation with yourself. If you're there with your spouse, the two of you, or friends, dig into it. In here, Hill said, if you are one of those people who believe that hard work and honesty alone will bring riches, perish the thought it is not true. Riches, when they come in huge quantities, are never the result of hard work. Riches come, if they come at all, in response to definite demands based upon the application of definite principles and not by chance or luck. Now he says here, I demand riches in definite terms. Who do you demand it of? You demand it of yourself. You absolutely refuse to play with this. You don't just pussyfoot around with this. This is serious business. You say, I am going to demand it of myself. When you do that, things start to happen. That's essentially what you did with the boat, isn't it? It's exactly what you did. And when you do that, then the way is shown. Seek ye first this kingdom in its righteousness by law, and all these things will be given to us. This has been written many, many different ways. Now, after that, this is something where you get involved in a little introspection. So this is not where you're going to talk to anybody at the table. Sit there and respect the privacy of the person beside you, because you're in very close quarters. After reading this chapter and seriously thinking about its content, write down in your own words how you have always felt about money and how you now feel about money. The exercise will assist you in altering your paradigm with respect to money. Now, the first part, this is how I was raised to think about money. Then the second part, these are the thoughts that I want to be a part of my new paradigm with respect to money. I brought something up. There's a lady that I coach, Michelle Stryker in New York. She's a fairly wealthy woman, very effective in real estate. And on one of the calls, I said something, and just right back, she says, that's not part of my belief system. I thought, God, I love that. Every seminar I've done since then, I brought that up because it's so important when you hear things. Is that a part of your belief system? If it's not, get rid of it. And if it is, ask why it is. Now take a few minutes and fill in page 16. to start by welcoming Daniel Molinari in Las Vegas, who's just joined us at 7:36. Come in on the streaming. Welcome, Daniel. Here's another one. Here's another one. Ismail Padilla from Mexicali. That's where Veronica's from. Where's Veronica? You're from Mexicali, aren't you? I remember Arash telling me, I said, that's a song, Mexicali Rose. Do you remember that song? There's got to be somebody here old enough to remember that song. And then we've got Abel Ortiz from Canyon County in California. These are all just people that have just come in. Here's one here. Chris M. I don't know what the rest of the M is, Chris, but welcome from New York. He's joined us at 7:21. That's great. This is kind of nice. You just say ka-ching, 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 ka-ching. Okay. And people say it's hard work. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. God, look at there's just da-doon, da-doon, da-doon. From all over the world, money comes to me in increasing quantities in multiple sources on a continuous basis. God, I love it. All right? Now, I understand we've got a book. Who's got the books? Doug? Where's Doug? You guys in charge of the books? We're going to give everybody an autographed copy of The Art of Living. Okay? And since Jacqueline has done such a phenomenal job in selling, I'll give you the first one. Okay? I was here for hours yesterday writing my name. There's some of the books I wouldn't even recognize it. If somebody says, is that your signature? Not my signature. It's strange after a while how you start scribbling. But save it. 100 years from now, it'll be worth something. All right. Are they passing them out? They are passing them out. Let's take a look here. What we're talking about here is about your mind. It's all about your mind. Now, let's take a look at this. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. Let's really try and embrace that idea. There is perfection within every one of us. We are spiritual beings, and the essence of who you are is perfect. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. Now, our responsibility in life is to become more and more aware every day of the perfection that's within us, and then express it in our actions. Now, it's all awareness. Sandy talked about awareness. There is a marvelous inner world that exists within you and me. And the revelation of such a world enables us to do, to attain, to achieve anything we desire within the bounds or limits of nature. As you look at this at home, Daniel, in Las Vegas, if that's who is still on with us, really think about this for a moment. Some of this, if you've never studied this before, it seems a little far-fetched. But if you will just settle in and really think about it, it's not far-fetched at all. Stop and think about the blood that is circulating in your body. Now think about it for a moment. The blood is circulating through hundreds of miles of passageway. Every 33 seconds, it carries all the food in and all the garbage out in one sweeping change. Goes through a complete cycle in this instrument that we're living in. Just think of your brain for a moment. At will, you can think, and as you think, you activate brain cells. I can activate brain cells and touch this, and that changes. Think. Your spiritual DNA is perfect. It requires no modification, no improvement. Now think, your spiritual DNA is perfect. It doesn't require any modification or improvement. What we're doing is we're studying to open ourselves up to become aware of what we've actually got going for us. Now think, this power that we're an expression of, that's flowing to and through us, is ever present. It doesn't matter where you go, that power is there. It's all powerful. All the power, when you say, where do you get the energy? You don't get energy, you are energy. Nobody gets energy, everybody releases energy. What you have to do is understand how to release it. Desire is the triggering mechanism to release the energy. When you have a strong desire to do something, you've got the energy to do it. And it's all-knowing. Doesn't matter what question you ask, the answer's there. Now think about this for a moment. We're talking about spirit. You and I are spiritual beings. Think, if you're sitting at home, you may be sitting there by yourself or sitting in an office somewhere. Really think. There's something absolutely incredible about you. You're made up of a power that flows to and through you. It's evenly present everywhere, so the power that makes you, makes me, we're all connected, really. It's all powerful, it's all knowing, and that is the real you. Now think of this for a moment. Are you truly who you pretend to be? Most of us have a charade going on. We're not who we pretend to be at all. We're so much more than what we pretend to be. There's so much to us. We think, gosh, if I can only get there, you're already there. It's you that's stopping you from going there. You are the offspring of a deathless soul. Now think about this for a moment. There's a power, it's ever present, it's all powerful, and it's all knowing. That's what you're made up of. That's what you are. The essence of you requires no modification. It doesn't require any improvement. It's there, and what we're trying to learn to do, we're learning how to open up and let that flow freely through us. What did Gove say? If I want to be free, I got to be me. Not the me I think you think I should be. Think. Not the me I think my wife thinks I should be. Not the me I think my kids think I should be. Not the me I think you think I should be. If I really want to be free, I've got to be me. I've got to let the walls down. I've got to let all that stuff go. I've got to free myself up to express the genius that's within me. I have a friend here that we met 13, 14 years ago. Phil, your life has changed like night and day. Would you agree? And all you're doing is learning how just to release more of you. Just bring more of you to the party. Now, we've got some people in here that have just getting some absolutely phenomenal results. And we're going to call on them from time to time to share with you what's actually happened to them since they began to study the information that we're putting out here. Because there's people in this room, their life has changed like absolute change, like night and day. I made a recording for Becca. You got a microphone back there, Becca? Is she back there? Where is she? Okay. Now, most people, or most women, I am told, in childbirth, sometimes they can have a real rough time. And I'm saying that's not necessary. And they say, yeah, well, that's why. I can understand why you're saying that's not necessary. And I said, no. I said, you can condition yourself that it's a magnificent experience. I made Rebecca a recording. She got it on a little nano pod or whatever they call them. It's about the size of a postage stamp. You can stick it in a pocket and plug it in your ear. How often did you listen to that, Becca?
I listen to it every day.
How often?
Twice a day sometimes, but at least every day for the last 6 months of my pregnancy.
And what happened
Oh, I fell
when the King of
asleep.
Phoenix was going to arrive.
I fell asleep while I was 10 centimeters dilated. It was probably the most amazing experience ever.
Were you relaxed?
I was very relaxed.
Pardon?
I was very relaxed. Everyone thought it was pretty bizarre.
And everybody around you couldn't figure it out?
No. And Declan came out cool, calm, collected, didn't even cry. It was the best experience.
Because I talked to him. Hey, listen, he's a massive intelligence. I was making the recording for her, and I thought, geez, I might as well talk to him too. So I was talking to him. He's intelligent. He would soak up that energy, soak up that information. And he arrived just like the way he said. And for her, it was a magnificent experience. Gina said, you should make these and we'll sell them. Listen, you've got to get the idea some of these far out concepts are not far out. They're only far out because of the way we're programmed to think. That's all it is. If we would let go of all those false concepts, all those false beliefs, and we'd let ourselves relax and let ourselves pretend we're happy when we're blue. I can see clearly now. You know, these lyrics are great prescriptions for a great life if we would listen to them. Mind is where opportunities originate. He said, I know this world is ruled by infinite intelligence. Everything that surrounds us, everything that exists, proves that there are infinite laws behind it. There can be no denying this fact. It is mathematical in precision. We're dealing with perfection when we're dealing with ourselves. Most people have an image of themselves that won't permit themselves to think that they're perfect. There is perfection within you and me. And the trick of life is let the tension leave and let the perfection live. Let the perfection express itself. See yourself living the way you want to live. It's such a good way to live. You don't have to go through security when you fly unless you choose to. I don't go through security when I fly because I choose not to. I think it was Matt, wherever Matt is here somewhere. There's Matt there. He said something to me one day in the office, and I said, damn, is that ever good? So I put it on an Instagram or something. When you make the same mistake twice, the second time it was a choice. You might write that down. There's wisdom in that. When you make the same mistake twice, the second time it's a choice. Corey was over in the suite we were working in, and she left her water bottle. She's very proud of this backpack she has, and it has a special place for a water bottle, and she's got this special water bottle. And she took and drank out of it. I said, do you want me to give you a bottle of water? No, I have my own water. And she set it down beside her chair. And she left it there. So we got a hold of her, and I said, I'll get down, meet her by the door. And I took the water bottle, and I met her at the door. She's sitting in here, and she's telling me she lost her water bottle. She said, I was in the bistro, and I set it on the floor. I said, you did that yesterday, too. But then she told me, so I said the second time, I said it was a decision. I said, you know, she said, well, I was in the little smoke shop place in the hotel, in the Marriott, and I saw these beautiful bronze water bottles. And she said, I really would like one, but I didn't want to get one because I said I already have one. Now she hasn't got one. She hasn't even got the bronze one. Yeah, I'll get you a bronze one in the morning. I will bring you a bronze one in the morning. But then you got to keep it in your backpack. Okay? Now remember, we're working with perfection. Perfection operates by law. Okay? The law of your being is perpetual increase. That's a law of your being. We said your spiritual DNA is perfect. Well, the law of your being is perpetual increase. That means it doesn't matter how well you did last month. You've got to do better this month. Yet doesn't matter how effective you were yesterday. You've got to be more effective today. This shouldn't be a struggle. The struggle is when we're trying to do it. You let yourself do it. Let is the key. Increase progress and growth. So when one good is realized, another desire for a greater good will develop. And when a higher state is reached, another more glorious state will unfold your vision, will urge you on and on. Hence, the advancing life is the true life, the life that God intended you to live. Now, some people don't believe in God. I do. If you don't, that's your problem. You see? I think it's sad when a person doesn't believe in God. When they die, they get all dressed up and they haven't got anywhere to go, you know. But we're an expression of an infinite power. And the law is God's modus operandi. And Spirit flows to and through us, and we work with the law. Now think, you are a spiritual being. You live in a physical body. You are not a physical body. You live in one. That's merely the instrument you're in. Now you have an intellect, and that's what separates us from all the rest of forms of life so far as we know. And it's how we use our intellect that's going to dictate our emotional state. And our emotional state is going to dictate what kind of work we do, what kind of a life we live. Now, the intellect chooses. And whatever comes in and we internalize, that's where we get emotionally involved. We don't have to accept ideas from outside. You'll find people say, well, she upset me or he upset me. He can't upset you. She can't upset you. You upset yourself. You have taken what they said, other people's opinions that Kierkegaard was talking about. You don't have to bother with that. You can just say, that's not part of my belief system. I'm not like that at all. I'm a nice person. If you don't find that's your problem. We've got to get this straight. We've got to quit taking junk in that upsets us. It's okay to live the way you want to live. Understand, if you violate the law, you pay. You live in harmony with the law, you win. It's pretty basic. Now let's think. It's a matter of choice. All failure in life is due to taking sides with the finite around us. That's why we let what's going on outside control us. All success in life is due to taking sides with the law within us. Thus, working with the law may be considered the same as taking the law into our mind and lives as a silent partner. Now, that's the writing of Raymond Hollywell from Working with the Law, who's a marvelous author. So let's think. Now, let that S represent you. You are a spiritual being. And let's understand, spirit is 100% evenly present in all places at the same time. In other words, spirit is 100% evenly present in the person beside you, exactly the same as it is within you. Every one of us have this spirit within us. It's 100% evenly present within us. That's why he said, my mind is a center. Now, spirit operates by law. Let these lines represent law, the law of vibration. Vibration operates on frequencies. Each line represents a frequency. There is an infinite number of frequencies. Now, the highest side of your personality is the spiritual side. The lowest side is the physical side. And sitting right in the center is the intellect. And that's where the choice is. And you and I are given choices. We actually have a choice. We can choose to let somebody upset us. We can choose else's point of view that's going to cause us heartache and problem or going to cost us money. Or we can say, I'm not going to accept that. I just don't care what anybody says. I'm not going to accept that. Now, if you're sitting at home and you're on stream, understand that this is the way it is. You actually choose. It's the intellect that chooses. Now, each frequency is hooked up to the one above and the one below. So the highest side of you and the lowest side, it's the same. What's the difference? Amplitude of vibration or density. The body is nothing but the physical manifestation of the spiritual side. Spirit manifests through its polar opposite. Prayer is the movement that takes place between spirit and form with and through us. We have an intellect, we can tap in, ask, and hold, and it'll manifest. That's an absolute law. It's just the way it works. Now think of this for a moment. Let's deal with something that's practical. Let's take a glass of water. Give me a glass with some water. Who's got some water? That's not a lot of water. Give me some more water. Okay. Here we have a glass with water. Now, a ring is hitting it. A ring is hitting the glass. The glass is holding the water. My body is holding the glass. What is the water made out of? Where the hell did I put the flipper? Put it in my pocket. Wasn't funny. All right. Look it. There's the glass with the water in it. Now, the glass and the water are made from exactly the same formless substance. They're made from energy. The glass used to be sand. If we added heat to the water, we will turn it into steam. We cause it to move faster. And so it moves off into a state we call steam. It's the same energy, but we don't call it the same energy. What we called water, we now call steam. If we continue to add heat, the steam turns into what? Air, ether, gas. The etheric, it's the non-physical. Now the ether, the steam, and the water are all the same thing. They're all the same thing. And they're all hooked together. There's no line of demarcation where it stops becoming water and starts becoming steam. There's no line of demarcation where it stops becoming steam, starts to become air, ether, gas. It's all hooked together. You know that. You've boiled water. You watched it disappear right in front of your eyes. You could go outside and hold the glass, stay there long enough, and I guarantee it'll fill up from water. From the no thing will come the water. You know that. Okay, let's look at it a different way then. Let's say there's spirit, spiritual side of you, there's the intellect, and there's the physical. Now, what we want to do is activate the intellect. So we kick it into gear. Now we call that thinking. And we tap into the spiritual realm. Where spirit omnipresent? Where are thoughts? Thoughts are omnipresent. Thoughts are of a spiritual nature. And we pull those thoughts together. And what we do, we build an idea. We cause this to happen. That's what this hotel is. This is a Hilton hotel. Conrad Hilton sat in a rangy little motel hotel in Cisco, Texas, and he had a picture of the Waldorf Astoria behind him, and he said, I am going to buy that and give it to my mama for Christmas, or for her birthday, and he did. Think. You build the idea out of what? Out of thoughts. You activate your brain, your mind, you get your intellect working, and you tap in to the non-physical, the thought realm. You can do that from anywhere. You can do it in your boat. You can do it walking down the street. You can do it sitting here or sitting in the coffee shop. Doesn't matter where you are. You have the ability to think. And when you build these ideas, then let's understand those ideas move into form. That's where everything that we have in this room came from. That's where that book came from. I was talking about the art of acting, the art of acting, the art of acting. And Sandy said, why don't we do a book like that? I said, okay. She went and got big 6-figure advance. And the largest publishing company in the world. Now they've got bookstores all over the place. And money comes to me in increasing quantities through multiple sources. I mean, it's such a hell of an idea. Well, if I can think that idea, you can think that idea because you have an intellect same as I do. You have a reasoning factor, you have an imagination, and you're dealing with the same power. It's with you, it's omnipresent, it's everywhere evenly present. If I can do it, you can do it. I was convinced if I could do it, anybody could do it. That's what took me into the prison. Yet I went in and I said, no, anybody, you got to let anybody that wants to listen. So finally they did. They were shocked. The guy that I got out, I got a number about, but that guy, the warden called him a mad dog. They kept him locked up all the time. I said, you just don't understand him. He's a beautiful human being. He's a spiritual individual. Of course, they thought I was a Jesus freak or something. I mean, they didn't know what I was. I didn't even know what I was, but I was so fascinated with this. Keep consciously connected. We are then conscious of the source and creator of all power when we keep consciously connected and realize and receive the many benefits that surround us. If we really thought about this, we would be blown away. The power is so awesome. And we're a part of it. Every one of us. Now let's look at the mind and the paradigm. Okay? Your mind, your paradigm. And we go through this every seminar. I go through this every day. Truman Fleet said nobody's ever seen the mind. He wasn't very involved in the healing arts, so he said, I'm going to draw a picture, let that represent the mind. That is, without question, the best idea I've ever come across. I remember when Val Vanderwall sat down and explained that to me. I had been studying this information for 10 years. One of the best books I ever read was Joseph Murphy's book on Power of the Subconscious. I mean, I thought that was a classic. But I had read all kinds of books. I mean, all kinds of books. And it was like I had all this good information, but I couldn't get it to fit. I was doing everything that I was supposed to do right, but I wasn't aware of what I was doing. I was an unconscious competent. And as he explained this, it started to fall into place. Now he said, you are a physical body and you have a marvelous mind. But he says the conscious mind and the subconscious, they operate quite differently. Totally different. And as he started to explain this, it just about blew my mind. Now let's look at it. Here you are, your conscious mind, subconscious and body. Now you and I have the ability to think. You can think anything you want. You're doing that with your conscious mind. That's where your creative faculties are. They're right in here. They're locked up within us. We can think anything we want to think. And we're at the point in our evolution when somebody said, what can you do? The answer is, what can you think? What can you do? What can you think? You mean I can do whatever I think? Yeah. Well, you're not going to do it here. That's usually what you hear. You can do whatever you think. Now that's where school loads us up with information. We call it the educated mind. But it's also where our intellect is resident. We have perception, the will, reason, imagination, memory, intuition. We've got all these phenomenal powers in there. Now, the subconscious mind, it's pretty simple the way it works, really, as magnificent as it is. That's the emotional mind. It is absolutely, totally different than the conscious mind. The conscious mind can choose. It can accept or reject, and if you reject, you can originate, because this power never stops flowing through us. But what goes into the subconscious has to accept it. It's like that glass. I can pour anything in that glass if I want. I can spit in it. I can throw this flipper in it. I can put anything in there. The glass doesn't care. Okay? Now think. It must accept because it has no ability to reject. And it cannot differentiate between what you imagine and what's actually happening. Pretend you're happy when you're blue. Your subconscious mind doesn't know. If you pretend you're going to be happy. Pretend you're happy and you'll be happy. Just pretend. You pretend you're happy and you'll let all the cares go. Think. I see the time. It's okay. I'm not ready to quit. All right. Now look at. Now look here. This is you today. You have this ability and you're being inundated with information. It's coming at you from all sides. You're getting it from radio, from other people, from TV, from newspapers. Everywhere, information's flying in. Now, because you have a reasoning factor, you have the ability to think. And remember how a moment ago we said you have the ability to choose, you can accept or reject? Well, this information that's coming at us, we can reject it. Do you know what most people do? They watch the news and they just accept it. Saying, I saw it on the news. I know it's happening. The economy is, we don't have to accept any of that. We can tell it all to go away. The strange thing is we don't tell it to go away. We don't even think about it. We leave our mind wide open and it just dumps right in. What do we say about the subconscious? It has no ability to reject. Why would we do that? Because we're programmed to do it. That's what the paradigm is. The paradigm is the program. It was built genetically and then environmentally in our little life. People very rarely change what's going on inside after the age of 5. That is really hard to grasp. With the awesome powers that we've got. Ask yourself why you look so much like your relatives. Why do you look like them? It's because you're genetically programmed by them. Your belief system, it goes back for generations. It's been passed from one generation to the next, and very rarely does anybody even question those beliefs. And if we do question them, some of them will seem absolutely absurd. We'll have a difficult time we even believed it. We not only believed it, it's controlling our life. Now let's take a look at where it starts. When we're little gaffers, here we are here, as infants. The infant's mind is wide open. You can put anything in that little mind you want, and we do. Whatever's going on around the baby goes right into the baby's mind. Now most people don't understand that. There's all kinds of fighting and arguing going on. There's people talking about you can't do this, you can't do that, we can't afford it, I don't know what's going to happen. You know, money doesn't grow on trees, you keep wanting more money. All in the child's mind. That child is growing up with a consciousness that will keep them locked in to a pattern that they don't like probably until they die. Now, is it changing? I think it's changing. I've seen it change dramatically over the past 50 years. But you see, whatever's going on around actually causes that person to think of themselves the way they think of themselves. That's where the child's self-image is formed. And if a person has a lot of doubt about themselves, if they don't really believe in themselves very much, it's because of what was built into their mind in their little life. If they're surrounded by people that never have goals, they're not going to have them. I love what Heinlein said. In absence of clearly defined goals, we become strangely loyal to performing daily trivia until ultimately we become enslaved by it. And that happens, that lack of goal direction of the people that surrounds the baby, that causes the baby to grow up like that. Now, the self-image is one idea. The paradigm is a multitude of them. And it's hard to believe that 35, 40 years later, that person's living the way they were programmed before they were 5 years old. But that's what's happening. And as a person starts to use this and starts to think about it and they start to break out of it, they think, wow, look what we're doing. You could have done it all your life. Can you imagine if you had to learn this as a little child, when you learned the language you speak, when you learned to like the food you like? Now, this is the organized educational model. We not only leave from a very early age of programming in our environment, we go to school, we hear what the teacher's saying. You hear with your ears. And we really believe this is an education. And then you gather information. What does that mean? Just exactly what it says. You're gathering information. The books start to pile up in the consciousness. And then at certain intervals, the teacher comes along and they give us a test. They want to know if we've learned anything. And we call this learning. This is not learning. It's gathering information and storing it. But we call that learning. That is not learning. Now, that's why we have people with all kinds of degrees that are walking the street out there and they cannot find work. Yet they're blaming Obama, or they're blaming the Prime Minister, or they're blaming China, or they're blaming somebody else. They're blaming outside why they're having trouble. You listen with your emotions. You hear with your ears. Now, there's a difference between hearing and listening. And there's a difference between learning and gathering information. Learning is when we consciously entertain an idea. We get emotionally involved in that idea. We step out and we act on the idea and we change the end result. Now, the learning experience is the feedback that comes to us from the change in result based on what we consciously thought about, got emotionally involved in, and acted on it. That is learning. And we learn if we think this and we get emotionally involved and we act on it, the results change. That's learning. If just like that, with very little knowledge along this line, Keith, you could knock off 1 million in 3 months, what do you think you could do if you really turned on the jets? You don't know, do you? But you know it must be huge. And you see, there's something in you that wants to find out. Now, here's where we're going to close it off. Let's take a look at the model now that we came here with. School gave us valuable knowledge. However, school never taught us how to alter our old paradigm. Therefore, we frequently don't do what we already know how to do. Consequently, we have superior knowledge. We've gone through the educational system. We've got the knowledge. However, we're getting inferior results. So, we become very confused and very frustrated. I spent all that money. I spent all that time in school. And what the hell? Look, this isn't fair. Fair's got nothing to do with it. It was your choice. So here we are here. The person's got a ton of information in their head, all kind of knowledge, but it doesn't equate. The results don't match the smarts. We say they're smart, they got all these degrees, but the results aren't there. What's happened? Well, it isn't all this knowledge that's being expressed. It's the paradigm that is causing the results. You don't even need a whole lot of knowledge. If you gain a knowledge of how to change the paradigm, you can change the results. Because if you want to change the results, that's how you're going to have to do it. But some people don't understand that. They get all this knowledge and they don't get the results. They think, well, I'll go back to school. I'll get another degree. I'll go and get another degree. No, that ain't going to do it. You got to ask yourself, wait a minute, I got the degree and it isn't cutting. What's happening? Now, I'm not against school. I think education's sacred, but real education. You see, as the person changes the paradigm, the results change. Now that is really important. As we go through this material and start to ask the questions and start to listen to what Waddle's talked about, everything starts to change. Do you have the It's Time brochures? They're all set? to hand out? Okay, let's hand them out. Now, we didn't come here to play or to rest. We came to expand our thinking. We came to find a better way to live. I'm going to give you a couple little brochures. And I'm going to ask you if somebody could get a couple to me. Somebody run one up to me, please. Somebody? Hello, somebody. Here we are. Thanks very much. Okay. Now, there's a little brochure here, and I'm going to ask you to read this tonight. I don't want you to read it like it's a brochure. I want you to read this like there's something in here. Let me see if I can find it. We say it's time to transform your dreams into reality, your goals into achievements, your thinking into results. Now, in the first page inside, the inside front cover, we say, if you want something more out of life but aren't sure what it is, if you've tried to make changes in the past without success, if you have a specific goal but don't know how to achieve it, here's some incredible news. You can get anything you seriously want, guaranteed. Now, really think. The realization of a goal is not a complicated process. In fact, it's a simple matter of cause and effect, as straightforward, consistent, and reliable as 2 + 2 = 4. The problem is most of us approach goals in entirely the wrong way. We focus on changing behaviors and habits in order to change results. A slow and potentially painful way to reach what will at best be temporary solution. Now we say the law of cause and effect is the law of laws. If you really want to make a change in your life, you need to go deeper. If you want different results, you need to ignite change at the level where your results are created in the first place. You need to change your mind. When you do that, achieving your goal becomes not merely possible or probable, it becomes inevitable. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is read this really carefully. Do you have the 8 questions? Did you pass those out with these? They're coming? Good. Thank you, Doug. Now, could I get a handheld, please? There's one here. There's 2 here. What the hell am I talking about? I have to figure out is, there it is. Could I have some power? Hello. Okay. Now, I want you to read this through slowly a couple of times. And then I'm going to give you 8 questions. I want you to ask yourself these questions. This program is a phenomenal foundation, what we're going through. It's really going to provoke you to think. If you really want to make something happen, I was watching when Sandy was up to front here, and she called on you, Bob. Is the power on in this? Hello? Could you turn this on? My goodness, we're having time with. Thank you. Hello? Check.
Are you picking on me?
You can sit if you want. Now, I understand the young lady beside you and Doug Dane. Where's Doug? Over there. They called on you and talked to you about this program. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you had them install this in your company. With how many people?
I have 6 people in total.
6
including
people.
me.
How has it worked with your 6 people?
It's really unbelievable because
I believe it.
I have this strong vision of where I want my company to be. And I thought that I was explaining it to them, and I thought I was telling them what I did to succeed, and if they just did that, they would succeed. But I could tell there wasn't a connection. They weren't responding the way that I thought they would. And as we started this, Doug and Jacqueline asked them what their goals were, and I was stunned at how small their goals were. They weren't exciting, they weren't inspirational, they were just very small. And I realized just how far off I was from my senior management team. And right now we're through lesson 10, so we're talking about leadership. And I've seen them progress to a level of awareness to where now I can actually start to communicate with them. And they respond to me like we're actually talking. And so now I can see them developing individually to reach their full potential.
You know, if you want to think of something you could compare this to, Bob, it was like you were talking to them in Russian, and they nodded as if they understood, and they didn't understand at all because they speak English.
That's exactly it.
You were speaking to them in a language they did not understand. And through studying this, now you're all on the same frequency. You're communicating more effectively. But not only are you communicating more effectively, they're thinking on a different frequency. Not just about their job, but about their life, about their future, about what they're going to do with their life. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
This is one of the most powerful programs a person could find. Now, I would like, thank you very much, I would like you to read this brochure, but don't read it as a brochure. Read it as a piece of material that has the potential of changing everything in your world. You personally, and if you have employees. We teach this in our own company. You have no idea what your people are capable of doing. I watch the people in our own company, and I love watching the change that takes place in them. We have people that came from really nowhere that now hold executive positions. They're earning very good money. They're doing what they love to do because we're using this material within the company to build the company. The first order of any business is to earn a profit. That is the first order of a business, because if you don't earn a profit, you're on your way out of business. But that is not the purpose of any human organization. The purpose of all human organizations is to make life more meaningful. Now, if you want to see something that you can use with your family, you can use with your company, study that little brochure. Read it 2 or 3 times, and read it as if there's something in here. If you haven't seen it yet, keep reading it. And then ask those questions, and be super objective in answering them. Really look at it right, because you have no idea where you're capable of going. Like this, I'm almost a little fanatical about this. Maybe some people think I am fanatical. But I was such a loser. I mean, I was a loser in school. I would not study. So, you know, at a very early age, my school was all over. 16. 2 months high school. I had, I don't know how many jobs, in and out of the Navy. I worked in bars. There's 2 bars I worked in where only lasted an hour, and they fired me. I mean, I was really losing. And like that, my whole life turned around. So, I mean, I don't wonder where this will work. I went into the Prudential. I went in right to the top guy in the top territory in the #1 company in the world. We raised their sales by hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm not exaggerating. One VP from down in Wichita, he was out of the Houston office, he said he think we've got it up over $1 billion. Where we teach the people, we were teaching them who they were, what they were capable of doing, how their paradigms was controlling them, and how to change that. There's a science of getting rich. There's also a paradigm that's going to keep you right where you are if you don't change it. Now, we're going to start again tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock on the button. Between now and then, I would like you to really read that brochure 2 or 3 times, read every word, and you might write your dream down before you start reading it, because the answer is in there. All right? Do you have announcements, Gina? Gina has announcements. I'd like you to give this lady a hand. She puts this all together. Now, she has some help, but she really makes it happen.
Hello. Have you written your names in your workbooks yet? Good stuff. So you've got a little bit of homework to do tonight. Take it seriously. It has the potential of really waking you up and changing your life. We'll be back here tomorrow at 9. VIPs, we're going to let you in at 8:30. Go home, have a nice sleep. We'll see you in the morning.